So what was happening in Ocala, some of the fishermen had approached me first. This is how it all evolved. Um, some of the fishermen were saying that they weren't able to go down on the cliff anymore and go pick opihi and fish down in that area because the water was so bad. Found out from some of the community members that they went up into the stream and they saw like manure and the smell, and so that's when we started to gather the community. The waters were so bad coming over a cart you couldn't pass on the highway. It was so bad that it ended up going into people's homes. When I asked them to stop spraying at one point when it was high winds, because they were spraying the manure too, and it was high winds and people were complaining that the camp nearby, one couple said they could feel the mist, and I called the dairy owner, Mr. Whiteside himself on the mainland, and he said, well, what do you want me to do, release it into the streams? It would just overflow all the time, and when they knew heavy rains were coming, a lot of times they would have to do a release, and they didn't have the permits to do a release. Amount of bacteria was just off the charts. Oh, this was going on for years, years.
To the town of our free rode a stranger one fine day. Hardly spoke to folks around him, didn't have too much to say. No one dared to ask his business, no one dared to make a slip. The stranger there among them had a big iron on his hip, big iron on his hip.
I had originally heard that the dairy was closing and that we were going to have to, or that they were going to have to slaughter the cows because there was no dairy in Hawaii that could buy the cows from them. I had a meeting with the neighborhood and friends, and I decided to do a GoFundMe fundraiser. And I thought, maybe I'll raise a couple $100, maybe 1,000. I'll rescue a few cows, and this will be great. And within a few days, thousands had been raised, and it was exponentially growing and growing. And all in all, we ended up raising around $65,000, and we rescued 70 cows altogether from the dairy. So this property here is 23 acres, and it was overgrown and unused, and I got in touch with the landowner, and what we ended up doing was creating an agreement where I could bring the cows here and I could live here and caretake the place, and in return I would maintain it for them. And that's kind of a situation we have going all over the island. We have 9 different pastures, all the way from Naalehu all the way to Hakalau, and they range in size from anywhere from about 6 acres to 50 acres. And altogether we care for 75 cows on all those properties in total. Most herd sizes are about 10 cows. And before we did our dairy rescue, we had 15 cows, and it was enough for the property that we had and the neighbors too. And we had heard about this dairy closing, and it was an ecological disaster. They were polluting the river, and they were forced to close. And so I thought, well, that's kind of sad that they're going to have to slaughter these cows. The cows at the dairy, they seemed kind of like, the general mood of the cows was like beat down, like submissive. Like they weren't really even afraid anymore. They were just kind of like, just kind of like, oh, okay, that energy is going to go in the milk. It's really sad. Everything's concrete, everything's metal. The cows are in very small spaces, and they were just giving a soy-based formula twice a day. In this kind of environment, the cow is in its natural environment. Its instincts are to graze and roam and select the best, nicest, tastiest grasses. The cows here, they probably just, they feel, I'm sure they feel amazing. If you allow the cows to just free graze a property, what they'll do is they'll strip every last bit of forage that they enjoy. But if you manage the cows in a different scheme, which is every couple days, or better would be every day, rotating them to a new section. In their smaller sections, what happens is the concentrated dunging and urine on a rotation adds huge amounts of fertility to that field, probiotics, micronutrients that couldn't get anywhere else. They not only clear the land, but they add nutrients, and they probably eat only about a third of what's there, and they stomp or trample the rest of it, which is throwing carbon back into the ground. So they're actually, when you do it this way, they sequester carbon. And for climate change, that's huge. My hope, my larger hope would be to spread awareness to people. I do cow cuddling, and in that cow cuddling tour, I tell people all about cows and how beneficial they are, not just for the food they produce, but for what they can do for the land, what they can do for the soil, and what the cows can really do for our psyche. I think being around cows is very beneficial for our mental health as well. Maybe it's because we've been around them for thousands of years and it's in our DNA now to be around these animals. Not all species can be domesticated, actually only a few, that we know of. Most farmed animals, obviously dogs, and cows have just taken to humans and humans have taken to cows. So it seems like a natural symbiotic relationship. I don't know if the cows know any of this. They're just going around eating the grass, but, but they're one of our greatest allies on this earth. So yeah, when I tried to grow vegetables and other things like that, it seemed like the juice was never worth the squeeze. Meaning I would input more than I was getting in an output. And I kind of had this, aha moment where I said, I should only grow things, I should only deal with things where I'm getting exponential return on my inputs. And the cow is the epitome of that. And I kind of coined it, I call it holy natural farming. And it's H-O-L-I. H-O stands for high output, L-I stands for low input. So holy is high output, low input farming. And so with cows, it's always worth the squeeze. My name is Narayan Higgins, and I'm a cow protector. When I hear other people say, this is a magical, life-changing experience, it inspired me to help the cows, that to me is like the epitome, the penultimate of what I could hope to achieve. I'm only one person, so what I want to do is spread this awareness and inspire others to protect cows and utilize cows in a respectful way.